What lies beyond the edge of the universe? I mean, it's got to be one of the biggest questions we can even ask, right? We know our universe is just unbelievably huge, but does it have an end? And if it does, what's on the other side? Let's dive in and see what we can find out. So let's start with a number, 13.7 billion light years. That number, that's our cosmic horizon. It is quite literally the furthest we can see in any direction. Think about that. Every star, every galaxy, everything we've ever seen is packed inside this giant bubble. So the big question is, why that number? Why 13.7 billion? And here's the kicker. It's not about having bigger or better telescopes. The problem isn't technology. It's time. See, the universe itself is about 13.7 billion years old. And since light doesn't travel instantly, any light from further away than that, well, it just hasn't had enough time to get here yet. So what we're really looking at isn't a wall in space, it's a boundary in time.
Which, of course, brings us back to the ultimate question. If we could just peek behind that curtain of time, what would we see? Would it just be more of the same stuff we see here, or something completely different? Or maybe, and this is a weird one, maybe we'd see nothing at all.
All right, so before we jump into all the wild theories, and trust me, they get pretty wild, we need to establish what we actually know. Let's lay down the facts about this so-called edge, kind of like defining the scene of the crime before we look for suspects. Okay, so here's the key term, the observable universe. And the most important word there is observable. It doesn't mean it's the whole universe, not at all. It's just the part we can see from where we are right now. You know, it's like you're on a ship in the middle of the ocean. You can see to the horizon, right? But you're pretty sure the ocean keeps going, or is it? And this is where things get super weird. Because when astronomers look all the way out to that 13.7 billion light-year limit, they don't see an end. There's no wall, no cosmic fence, no giant sign that says, you are now leaving the universe. It looks like everything just keeps on going. So if it all just seems to continue, how can we know if there's anything beyond what we can see? Well, that brings us to our first major clue, a really strange discovery that hints at something huge, lurking out there in the dark, just past our line of sight. Okay, so for a long time, scientists thought the universe's expansion was pretty straightforward. You know, everything's moving away from everything else, kind of like dots on an inflating balloon. Simple, uniform, predictable. But then they looked closer, and they saw something that just didn't add up. These enormous clusters of galaxies, they weren't just moving apart. They were all being tugged together in the same direction by some invisible force. This phenomenon has a seriously cool name, dark flow. And here's the mind-blowing part. Whatever is causing this massive gravitational pull, it's not something we can see. All the math shows that there's nothing inside our observable universe big enough to do it. The culprit has to be hiding just beyond the edge of our vision. I mean, this just shows you the insane scale we're talking about. NASA cosmologist Alexander Koshlinsky basically said the structures responsible for this could be hundreds of billions of light years away, stuff we can't see. He admits it's speculation, but just imagine that. We are feeling the gravitational pull of something that we might never be able to see. Okay, so we have our first clue, this mysterious cosmic pull. Now it's time to bring in our first suspect. And this one is, in a way, the simplest explanation and also maybe the most overwhelming. What if the universe just never ends? What if it's infinite? So this idea is pretty straightforward on the surface. What's beyond our cosmic horizon? Well, just more of the same. More stars, more galaxies, more nebulas. Forever and ever and ever. Just an endless ocean of stuff. Sounds simple, right? But this simple idea leads to a truly wild conclusion. Okay, get ready for this, because it's a bit of a brain melter. So you have an infinite amount of space, right? But there's only a finite number of ways you can arrange particles. If you have forever to play with, eventually you're going to run out of new combinations. The patterns have to start repeating, and that means somewhere out there in that infinite expanse, there's another you, an exact copy, and another Earth, and another version of you that made a different choice for breakfast this morning. It's a lot to take in. All right, so if the idea of infinite copies of you isn't weird enough, let's move on to suspect number 2. This one asks a different question. What if our universe isn't the only one? What if it's not even the main one? We all know the Big Bang, right? Our entire universe exploded out of this tiny, super hot, super dense point. But where did that point come from? The Big Bang theory is great, but it doesn't really answer that. Well, this next idea tries to. Okay, this theory comes from physicist Nikodym Poplovsky, and it's pretty incredible. The idea is that our universe is actually inside a black hole that exists in a much larger mother universe. So some matter from this bigger universe falls into one of its black holes, gets crushed down into a singularity, and then, bang, it explodes and creates a brand new universe. Our universe. If this is true, it means that every single black hole in our own universe might just be a doorway to yet another one. So, we've talked about more of the same forever, and we've talked about our universe being just one of many. But what if the answer is neither of those? What if the answer isn't more stuff, but nothing? What if the universe isn't expanding into anything at all? All right, this brings us to our final suspect. And I gotta warn you, this one is probably the hardest to wrap your head around, because it kind of goes against everything our intuition tells us about, well, everything. The theory goes like this. The universe isn't expanding into some big empty space. Instead, space itself is what's expanding. Think about the surface of a balloon as you blow it up. The surface gets bigger, but it's not expanding into anything on the surface, right? The surface is the whole thing. In this theory, the universe is everything. There is no outside for it to expand into. Now, I know what you're thinking, but what's the balloon expanding into? Our brains just have to ask that question. But this is where someone like Stephen Hawking comes in. He basically argued that the question itself might be meaningless. The idea of a true nothing, an absolute void, might just be something we invented with language, something that can't actually exist. The real answer could be something so far beyond our experience that our brains just literally can't process it. So, we've looked at the clues, like the mysterious dark flow. We've brought in the suspects. So where does that leave our cosmic case? Let's recap the lineup. Suspect number 1, an endless universe with infinite copies of you. Suspect 2, our universe is just a baby, born inside a black hole in another bigger universe. And suspect 3, the universe is all there is, and it's not expanding into anything because there's no anything for it to expand into. And the verdict is, well, the case is still wide open. We just don't know. Each of these ideas is fascinating, but right now, that's all they are, ideas. The truth is, the edge of the observable universe is more than just a limit on what we can see. It's the current limit of what we can know. But you know, maybe that's the real point. When you start thinking about stuff on this scale, about infinite versions of yourself, or universes inside of universes, it really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? It kind of puts our own everyday problems into perspective. It's a good reminder that the universe is so much bigger, so much stranger, and so much more mysterious than we could ever imagine. And honestly, that's a pretty amazing thought to